essentially the peak time when it comes to digital advertising in terms of what people are starting in their preparation phase, what they're looking for, searching for new products, starting to think about shopping. So we thought that today would be a great time to have a recap about what that means for you and how you can take advantage over that over the different digital channels. So Ramadan, obviously, we've got coming up in a couple of weeks' time between March and April. We've got almost 2 billion people which will be observing that globally. That's obviously nearly a quarter of the planet. So, a lot of people worldwide, a lot of changes in behavior, in how people are looking for items, shopping, purchase behavior, just generally how their life will change over the course of a month versus what we would see as the sort of status quo throughout the rest of the year. So, what we'll be doing today is we'll be looking at some of the different impacts that we've got across some of the different channels. So, TikTok, Meta, Google, YouTube, and Twitter. So, starting with TikTok. So, a common theme that you'll see across some of the other platforms here coming up is that there are a few topic areas that people generally tend to see an increase for in terms of views, engagements, especially when it comes to cooking, health, family entertainment, and on the gaming side. And when we look at last year on TikTok, what we've seen is a big increase over the last few years in terms of how people are using TikTok, their viewership rates on TikTok. Something that we've seen last year versus 2021 was that there was 802 billion video views, which is a 44% increase year on year, and 47 billion engagements, which is a 13% increase year on year. So, really big increase in viewership and engagement rates over the course of that year. But something that's also quite interesting is the amount of time on average that was spent on mobile in Ramadan on TikTok, with that coming in at just over 1 hour and 20 minutes. So, really a long part of the day being spent on TikTok. And then that's more than when you look at individualized topics like messaging, video, social, and gaming. So, TikTok really coming out on top there. So, TikTok being an emerging platform, I say emerging, it's been around now for a few years. I wouldn't really call it emerging anymore, but there is still a bit of a thought about TikTok that it's just for the younger generation, which isn't exactly true. And then across Ramadan, so here are the four categories which were more prominent than the others. So auto, beauty, retail, and food. So sorry about that. So TikTok as well, across different types of hashtags, people have been engaging and connecting around different types of topics. So hair talk, nail talk, food talk, car community. So it's really important to get your message out, also be engaging and connecting through the different hashtags on TikTok so that people can make sure that they can see and find your content as well. On the Meta side, so something that we see across Meta, similarly to what we've seen on TikTok, is that there is a higher viewership, higher engagement rates across how people are interacting with brands on Meta. So about 58% saying they feel more connected to brands after seeing Ramadan content, and 66% being more connected to brands through instant messaging. So what people are really looking for is that connection, that engagement, knowing that people are being looked after on a one-on-one basis, that they can reach brands and also get in touch with those brands as well. And then lastly, also having personalized shopping experiences. So not just having a sort of one size fits all, but making sure that what they're looking for is actually relevant to those users. And then when it comes to video as well, so 65% of shoppers, again, spending more time watching video content during Ramadan and Eid. So we've already seen with TikTok that there's a lot of people spending a lot more time on TikTok. Video viewership increasing, engagement rates increasing, and that's exactly the same for Meta as well. So video is super important when it comes to Ramadan. And also when it comes to financial planning for Ramadan, what we've seen over the course of the last 3 years is that the total amount of spend over Ramadan and Eid periods is actually increasing. So if we look at 2020 and 21, obviously during these years we had a lot of lockdown restrictions. 2022 was the first year really that we were just coming out of lockdown. So a big increase in total spends last year compared to the previous 2 years. And the expectation this year is that will rise further as well. So we really do expect that commerce will be particularly high for 2023, as this year is a lot more exciting than what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years due to the lockdowns and restrictions and so on. And then when it comes to the top commerce categories, so probably no surprise to see that food and beverage is number one, but also three out of the top four are all related to food and beverage. So you've got food and beverage, confectionery, restaurants, and food delivery. But also wedged in between there is fashion and apparel, followed by other categories like charitable donations and such as well. So really important, especially the food and beverage industry, followed by fashion and apparel. And then in terms of how audiences, at least in the UAE, are researching their Ramadan purchases, probably no surprise here to see that that's pretty much all done online. The majority done by smartphone, followed by laptop, desktop, and so on, and then a lesser amount of people in store than there is online. When it comes to commerce planning, so now is actually the perfect time for commerce planning. So 60% of people start planning their purchases actually before Ramadan, 25% during Ramadan, and then around 16% ongoing before and during. So what we want to do is really start capturing those people now, because now is the perfect time. So I've got a graph which I'll show you in a few slides' time, which shows when people are starting to plan in the peak searches. So now really is getting into that time. So it's really important that you've got your content ready, your messaging ready, so you can get that live for this period as well to capture those users. So on the Google side, I touched upon this a couple of minutes ago, but this is really the first year over the last 3 years where Ramadan is really going to be seen as being exciting. We've seen across 2020 and 2021 that due to the COVID lockdowns and restrictions, everything that was happening globally, it was a lot more muted over those 2 years. Whereas last year, it was kind of seen as a bit more back to normal. Restrictions were lifted. Things were sort of as they were a few years ago. But now, coming into this year, we're really wanting to see and expecting to see a lot more excitement during the course of Ramadan as well. And here's a graph I was talking about before as well. So this is looking at how people start planning and preparing in terms like before Ramadan, and we're really getting to that peak period now. This is 1 and 2 weeks before Ramadan, that really the excitement starts at the start. So there's naturally, as always is every year, a peak in the first week of Ramadan that then starts to die down, and then starts to build again over Eid. So really important to be make sure you're out there now, making sure that you've got your messaging out there and you're capturing those users. And then in terms of the search terms, you'll see this every year, that there's people searching for a lot of different things across not just Ramadan, but also planning Eid already. These are the 2021 terms, but the 2022 terms were pretty much the same. So we do expect that 2023 will follow that pattern as well. And then when it comes to shopping, what we've got here are two different graphs, which is looking at shopping app active users over the last 3 years, grocery app active users over the last 3 years as well. So what you've got here is 2022, 2021, and 2020. So what we're seeing is that, 2019 to 2021. So what we're seeing is that every year there's been an increase in the amount of people that are using shopping apps as well. Naturally, most brands are releasing apps if they don't already have it, and more people are turning to those apps as well. So every year we're seeing quite a big increase in the amount of people that are using apps for shopping and groceries, and we'll likely see an increase in that in 2023 as well. So despite spends actually increasing, there are a lot of people which are being more cautious about their spending. So key point here is on the right hand side here, is that a lot of consumers, especially when it comes to the KSA market, are focusing on essential items. So even though people are spending more like gradually over the last few years, they're actually spending it more on essential items rather than sort of purchases. So 33% of people spending less on impulse purchases. So that's why it's really important to get your messaging out early, so that people are actually looking at purchasing essential items that are actually wanting to be purchasing rather than some of the more impulse purchases. And then when it comes to YouTube, so again, similarly to what we've seen with TikTok, with Meta as well, we've got 75% of the top watch YouTube videos actually coming from ads. So ad content being really important for YouTube during the Ramadan period. And then 6 out of 10 subscribers saying they would follow advice of a creator over a favorite TV or movie personality on what to buy. So that's where influencer content really becomes very powerful over Ramadan as well. And then when it comes to what people are actually looking for, there's a lot of people increasing their searches across different types of sustainability and social responsibility. So it's all about um, sustainability, social responsibility, charitable giving, family orientated, especially during this time. That's something that's very common every year during Ramadan and Eid. And then lastly, when it comes to Twitter, so got a few stats here across UAE, KSA, and Egypt. So Twitter, again, like the other platforms, we're seeing people want to talk about Ramadan before it actually begins, in the days and weeks before that, similarly to what we've seen with the other platforms. So that's why now really is key to get that messaging out there. And then also across these three markets, we've got a few stats here about how people in these three markets, UAE, KSA, and Egypt, the changes in some of their behavior during the Ramadan period. So more likely to spend more, 61% of people in Egypt, 50% in KSA, 52% in UAE, more likely to explore, and more likely to be influenced as well, and drivers of purchases during Ramadan. So really important to be out there. You'll see across the Ramadan period that behaviors are changing. There's a lot of people more likely to spend. So it's important that you get that message out there, get it out there properly as well. And then in terms of the content, last slide here. So this is the type of content that people are seeking. Again, for Twitter, this is also in line with what we've seen for other channels as well. So entertainment, food and cooking, comedy, shopping, health and wellness. So similar across all of the three markets, just in a slightly different order each time. But the key thing is those topics. So especially if you're in these industries, really important to make sure that you're differentiating yourself, getting your message out there, and really being able to connect with your users during this period is really important. So I hope that helps. That was quite a quick run through of what we're expecting over the next two weeks and then the following month. If you've got any questions, please get in touch. And if you'd like us to help you, then please get in touch and one of our team will get in touch with you soon as well. Thanks.